Bonjour, bonjour, and welcome to number 23 of Travels Around My Bedroom. And today we are off to Africa. So I woke up this morning thinking that I actually wanted to go back to the first time that I went on the continent and how I made that happen. So, in fact, I went as part of a group because at the time I wasn't confident enough to actually travel on my own in sub-Saharan Africa. So I bought a place on a small adventure tour. You know, you go into this kind of mini buses, mini kind of truck, jeep, whatever they're called. And you're with another, what would say, about 15 people, I think. And there were things that I didn't know when I did that. So first of all, I didn't know that I would end up with couples. I hadn't thought about that. And I was lucky because there were two single guys and a single woman that were on that trip as well. But it's one of the things that actually now you have holidays for singles only, but that didn't exist. And it's quite weird to try to find your place within a group when it's full of couples that are there to have a nice and romantic time. And some of them are really lovely. I really befriended a couple from Austria that was absolutely amazing. We're still in touch, and also with these two other guys, one from Costa Rica and another one from Spain. But sometimes it's not the case. And it's actually one of the reasons why I decide to now travel on my own. Because when you travel on your own, you then get to meet so many more people. And you don't stay into that little group that travels together. So I arrive in. So first of all, of course, it always has to sometimes start with trouble when it comes to me when I travel. But it was right at the time, just after 9/11, and all the things, of course, at the airports had changed. And I didn't think. We were told to put our mobile phones in our bags, and instead of putting my mobile phone inside my rucksack, I put it on the top pocket. And I guess I was excited. It was my first time, and of course, when I arrived in Johannesburg, there was no mobile phone anymore. So and I really got in a little bit of a panic because if anything happened, there was no way I could contact anyone. And the other thing is that I just started seeing someone at the time, and I thought, I've just only started to see him. Now I go off for 3 weeks, and I'm not going to be in touch at all for 3 weeks. And what is he going to think? So I very quickly tried to find a computer, send a couple of emails, and then we had to go. But I arrive at the hotel, and I'm introduced to the lady that I have to spend the next 3 weeks with. And she's lovely. She's from New Zealand. She's in her mid-50s and like almost my age very soon. But the minute she starts to sleep, she snores. And she snores. And she snores. And if there is one thing that I can't do, is sleep through snores. And it's just my worst nightmare. So I always carry earplugs. I actually cannot sleep without earplugs anymore. But this was hell, because I was supposed to go on holiday to sleep and to, even though it was a bit adventurous, to get a minimum of rest. And I hardly slept for the whole time. And, and then we shared a tent. So you can imagine we were very, very close and very, very cozy. That was so noisy. It was incredible. So we have our little introduction to the tour, and we go off. And the thing that I had done before we started the tour was to actually go to Robben Island, which for me was the highlight of South Africa. To go to the prison where Nelson Mandela spent all these years, and to see how small it is, you know, and I'm a small person. So I can't imagine how it must have felt to be in such an enclosure, to not have heating, because it gets really cold. I can tell you, I was there in August. Actually, this is my ticket. I found my ticket again. I don't know if you, to Robben Island. I don't know if you remember my little box of treasure. And so I went in there to find out what I could share with you today. And I even have my boarding pass from London to Johannesburg, London in August. But it is very cold when it's winter. And I remember when we had to put our tent, my fingers were completely frozen. I hadn't brought any gloves. I hadn't been thinking, you know, properly. And I'm sure some of you have done that, not thought and not prepared properly for your trip. I wasn't expecting it to be that cold, actually. So I had to also buy a blanket when I was there. And being there on Robben Island and being in the prison, I just kind of thought, okay, how much pain has this man experienced in his life? And there was one thing at the time that I didn't know, that I've learned since, in the last kind of, I would say, 5 or 6 years of my life, which is that the lower you get in your life, the higher you will bounce back. It's like you cannot create greatness unless you experience the depth of suffering, of pain, and of sadness. And when I was thinking about this, you know, now today, I realized how true it is of Madiba, of thinking that, you know, the imprint that he has left on our society, and certainly on my generation. I can tell you, if there is one moment that I remember when I was 18, as a young adult, is seen on TV when the release of Nelson Mandela. That will be one of the key moments of my youth, and this is one of the key moments that defines my generation. But we go on the trip, and after South Africa, we get into Namibia. And Namibia was amazing. So I found, it's just, you know, this is why keep as much as you can from your travels. But I found some old banknotes from Namibia, and what I love is the other side. I just love watching all these, you know, all these animals. So you're already traveling just only because of the banknotes. That's what I love. That's intelligent people when they came to looking at their banknotes and tourism. And to go to the sand dune of Sossusvlei was absolutely amazing. I had to wake up very, very early in the morning, but to see that red earth, you know, that's one of the things that I remember, driving and seeing this lunar landscape and this red earth everywhere was just completely different from anything that I had ever seen before. And I remember taking a really interesting tour in Windhoek, where we stopped, where I met some Xhosa or Shosha, I don't know how you pronounce it properly, ladies who would speak to us. And you know, they have 48 ways they can put their tongue in their mouth, like. And not only do they do that, but they do it as they speak, yes? Which is amazing. I'd love to learn that language. So that was a really fantastic encounter, because I also learned about apartheid in Namibia. And I didn't know they had it over there. No one really speaks about it. And the things that they did, you know, that whites did in order to recognize Africans from Namibians that belonged to different tribes. So because they couldn't see them, they couldn't understand how they differed physically, or culturally, you know, because they had no interest in their culture, obviously, they would cut their little finger to know that they all belong to one tribe, or they will make an incision, like either one incision or two incisions into their into their face, or cut a thumb on their foot, which is kind of, which is incredible when you imagine that. And we were told how the shops had two lines, especially the baker. So you would have a line to queue to get for black Namibians, and they would get brown bread, and then the white would get on white bread. That was just completely and utterly surreal. There are so many things that we are not told, and then you get to the country and you're flabbergasted by the amount of hatred that was happening at the time. And and hatred is universal. It's everywhere, and it continues to this day. So just to finish that first part, because I will do a two part. It's what, and on a good note. So I bought this in Namibia because I totally, absolutely fell in love with this bag, and I actually do not know if it's from Namibia or if it's the Bushmen of Botswana, and we did go to Botswana afterwards. So one reflection that I wanted to have is we often forget to ask about the history of the objects that we buy. So it's very important to do that. And I regret that I didn't do that. And in the same way, sorry, I forgot to share the other things that I bought at the market there. So these are beautiful tapestry as well that I'm going to make. I've been waiting all these years to make them into cushions, so that I can sit on the floor. I love sitting on the floor and actually working on the floor as well. So look at how beautiful. I just want to put that in front of you. This is, for example, a very simple piece here, but absolutely by its simplicity, gorgeous. The amount of work that has gone in there is beautiful. And when I see a piece like this, it makes me think of different things. Like this, for example, makes me think of prison for a weird reason. And then this one here, look at that, as well, gorgeous. And that's the last one. But the thing that I wanted to finish part one with was the fact that I at the bed and breakfast where we stayed for one night, I met some really amazing refugees from Zimbabwe who were all working as tour guides, and I learned so much from them, and I was so inspired by their ambition to change their country. And it just, when you take the time to sit down and to speak to people and to discover what's happening in their country, politically, and I got to see it when I then went to Zimbabwe later on. It is fascinating, and it really makes you have so much compassion for people who fight to have a better life. It's so important. So I wanted really to finish on that, and to ask you, a question about traveling on your own. Have you ever been in front of this conundrum? Should I buy a ticket to go into an adventure tour? Am I going to be on my own? What's going to happen? Am I going to make friends? I would absolutely love to know that. And I'll see you for part 2 tomorrow, and we're going to Botswana, and we're going to Zimbabwe. Okay, thank you, and have a lovely day.